Okay, good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning.
You are welcome to my class. This is the ILO Entrepreneurship Training Academy, and we're going to be having a micro training session this morning. Our maximum time is 15 minutes, and I believe that within that 15 minutes, we're going to learn a lot of things. So this morning we're talking about engaging employee complexity. We all know that employees are the most valuable asset that we have in an organization. And managing employees will actually be very, very complex. You agree with me?
Yes.
And that is why we want to take our time to learn what are those things that makes employee complex. In every organization, there are times where employees become non-productive. There are times when employees are very, very productive. And for us to have a very productive employee, it is very, very important for us to take note of the most important things that makes them productive. And that is why we want to see what are the things that makes a troubled employee. Look at it. The most common problems experienced by employees are family difficulties, including financial, marital, and health problems. Alcohol and drug abuse often develop as a result of other problems. When employees encounter any of those problems, especially the family issues, it reflects in what they do in the workplace. For example, someone is having a fight with his wife or with her husband in the morning, and then she comes to the office and transfers that aggression to her colleagues. Or she becomes quiet and she will be able to do her work very well. These are challenges that as a manager, most of us here are entrepreneurs, we have staff that are working with us. It is very, very important for us to know and identify those problems whenever they arise. Now, for you to identify that there is a problem in an employee, there are things that you have to look at. But before we look at those points that I've raised, I want you to share your experience. Are there any troubled employee in your organization? Do you have, in a situation, probably in your own offices, in your shop, one of your staff, have you ever encountered any employee that is giving you trouble?
Yes.
Please, can you share with the class?
Good morning, sir. Good morning. There used to be a time where I worked before with an IT firm. There was this young man who was having issues at home with his wife, and most times he always burned the aggression on female colleagues in the office. Until we were able to identify what he did, and he was properly advised by the HR. Until then, that's when we get the best of him. So,
Please, let's give him a power clap. Okay, so how did you identify such problem and how did you resolve it?
yes, just from a simple conversation by another colleague close to me, we were able to know that okay, these are the issues he is facing from home. Actually, the person did not intend to actually extract what outgoing was. One thing always to another, and then we were able to know that okay, these are the issues he's facing, and a concerned friend related to the HR, and thank God the HR is a very understanding person. In fact, I will call him the person is not just an HR, is I would say he's an advisor. So talking to him, then we see that the pressure on him calm, and then we're able to do it all better. There's better relationship with him and other staff.
Thank you, Mr. Yinka, for sharing your experience. Let's give him another power clap. Like we said earlier, there's no way you can have people working with you when you don't encounter one of those things. This particular example they gave us is a perfect example of what family issues can actually cause in an organization, or that can cause to the performance of an employee. Because when you have family challenges and you don't take care of those issues from the home front, they affect your performance at the workplace. Are we together? And that is why we are going to be looking at the symptoms of those problems. How do you identify them? Number one is job performance. Naturally, when you see a troubled employee, the job performance of that particular staff will drop. You could see he's losing concentration, he's not doing his job the way he should do it. You know, these are symptoms of a troubled employee. And as HR or as the owner of the organization, it is very important for you to put your eyes on these things. Because anything that affects the employee affects the productivity of the organization. And whatever affects the productivity of the organization affects the profitability of the organization. And the moment your business stops making profit, it means that your business is already heading for the rocks. So it is very important to watch out for those things. Number two thing you look out for is health. Is the employee always falling ill? We have a staff in our other branch that every time she's either going to the hospital or taking sick leave and all of that. These are things that you should watch out for as an employee, because as an entrepreneur. Because anytime your staff is falling ill, it will probably, there's an infection, COVID-19, it will be HIV, whatever it is. It is very important for you to notice those things quickly, counsel the employee, and advise the employee to either use the facility. If you have a partnership with the hospital, send that particular employee to the hospital and let them see what's wrong and provide solution. The next one is physical appearance. As a corporate organization, the appearance of your staff matters. So when you observe suddenly the appearance of your staff is deteriorating, then there's a problem. That is a red flag that you should watch out for. Probably the employees that dressing shabbily, not keeping their hair cut properly, not dressing properly, is a red flag that you should watch out for. The next one is emotional or feelings. These are things that are easily observable. You discover that they distance themselves from other staff in the office, they speak less, and you could see that they are no longer communicating effectively. These are times where, as business owners, we should be sensitive enough to call our employees, have a heart-to-heart discussion with them, know what the issues are, and see how they can be trashed. The next one is social and relationship. One key factor I want to share is, you see an employee bringing friends to the office, probably becomes over social, So, just like you have a staff, and instead of the staff to spend full time working, you see him entertaining visitors in the office and all of that. You know that is a red flag for the organization. And then financial. Every time you see your staff borrowing from multiple financial institutions, then that person has a financial problem, and he or she needs what? Counseling. Then family. We mentioned family earlier. It is very, very critical. When someone is having a fight with his spouse or with other members of the family, it affects the productivity at the office. You should watch out for those things. And then lastly, we have legal. When you see a staff being arrested, imagine you are at your workplace with your staff and then the police walk in and then arrested one of your staff. That is not good for the image of the organization. And these are issues that you should address as quickly as possible. Okay. The next thing we're going to look at is how to deal with this problem. There are 4 ways to deal with these problems. Number 1 is getting the facts and preparing your case. Observe the job performance of your employee and identify any change in both performance and behavior. Like we said earlier, you have to observe your staff very well and watch out if there are changes in their performance. For example, your staff usually attend to 50 clients per day, and suddenly he or she is attending to 30 clients. That is a red flag that you should watch out. And then when you notice that, what do? Establish that the work performance of an employee has fallen below the required standard, and keep a written record of the incidents of standard, substandard performance, and attendance problem. So when you notice those drop in performance, you have to keep a good record. Like I explained just now, an employee usually attends to 50 people per day, and suddenly drop from 50 to what? To 30. So that is a sharp drop. So that is the first thing you have to do, because if you don't have the facts and prepare your case, I tell you, when you confront the employee and say, Mr. James, your performance has been dropping and your productivity is low. He said, excuse me, ma'am, how? I've been here every morning, 8 a.m. and I close 6 p.m. There's no way you can say my employee, if you don't want me to work with you. You know, all of those arguments will come. But when you are prepared, you can confront him and say, your average performance last month was 50 clients per day. Today, your average performance is 30 clients per day. Can you explain this? What is the challenge? You will avoid confrontation at the end of the day. Are we clear? Any question? The second one is discuss the problem and seeking solution. Discuss the performance problem with the employee. Explore ways of improving job performance and insist that the employee improves his or her performance. And then offer to help identify the underlying problems. And then create a list of community resources for possible referrals when the problems are personal. Are we together? So once you identify those problems, you have to discuss them with him and try as much as possible to provide solution to ensure that the productivity of that staff improves. And if the challenges are beyond what you can handle, maybe you can recommend him for counseling or maybe for further training or whatever it is. But it is very, very important for you to intervene at this level. And the next one, number 3, is acting on the problem. Take disciplinary action if it is required by the company policy. You see, we don't condone non-performance. It's not a good thing. So if you have discussed these issues with the employee and it's not working out, what do? You can take disciplinary action if you have such policy that guides your action. Then reach an agreement on a plan to resolve the problem. You can have an agreement with the staff or with the employee and say, okay, now your productivity has dropped. Let's see in the next 1 month, what can we do? Can we move from 30 clients to 35 in the next week to 40 and so on and so forth? You can have this plan with them and then put the agreement in writing and have it signed by both parties. Once you agree on the way forward, please put it on writing. Let the employee commit himself and say, I'm going to make conscious efforts to improve on my productivity over a 1-month period. Are we together? Then implement the written plan according to the terms of agreement. Follow up with the employee and check on him. Last week we agreed that you're going to have move from 30 clients to 35 clients. How are we doing? Check it out and ensure that whatever you agreed on is being implemented over the period as agreed in that agreement. And then refer the employee to the relevant community resources that you mutually agreed upon. So if there are places you want to send him to, either for training or for counseling or for whatever it is, or even if it is health issue, maybe to the hospital, please ensure that you keep your own part of the bargain. Any question so far? Then the last stage is providing follow-up and support. Stick to the terms of the written agreement. It is very, very critical that when you have that agreement written, you have to stick to it. And the next one is support the employee with personal contact and keep communicating openly, communications open. Don't shut your doors to the employee. You have to keep in touch with the employee and make sure that communication line between you and employee is what? Is open. Every time call him, check up on him or her, know how he or she is doing, see how the performance is improving, and all of that. And then continue to evaluate any change in job performance. And this is very, very critical. You have to evaluate if there are improvements or there are no improvements in the performance of the job. And keep in contact with the relevant referral resources concerning any progress. So if for any reason you send him to training or to counseling, keep in touch with them and also know how the employee is performing. And as a business owner, you have to provide counseling personally, one-on-one. Have those heart-to-heart discussions with an employee. A lot of times when employees are having challenges, it is our responsibility as business owners to counsel them, to guide them, advise them, work with them to resolve those problems. Sometimes those troubled employees turn out to become some of the best employees that your company will ever have. So don't take them for granted, don't just throw them away. And finally, measures to prevent what? Problems. Number one is the code of conduct. How many of us know what a code of conduct is all about? Do you know what a code of conduct is? What is it?
Manner of behavior in a particular environment.
Is that right? What is the code of conduct? Someone says the manner of behavior in a particular environment.
It has to do with the policy that guides an organization.
So code of conduct is the policies that guides the behavior of the people working in an organization. What should you do to prevent problems with employees?
To prevent, I think the code of conduct should be what you prevent. And to resolve, then I think HR policies are very resolving problems.
HR policy. Okay. What else? Yes?
Regular check-up on your employees is very important. Every week or can do a monthly seminar for employees. Check up on them regularly, how is their health, their family, just do those regular routines for them. Then you can also do like a company dinner with them, do like company outing with them, to make them relax, to improve their productivity. Thank you.
Okay, let's give her a power clap. Thank you, Ms. Favor, for that insight. Yes, any other contributions? Okay, so you guys have already mentioned them. The code of conduct is very important to have a written code of conduct within the organization. And then hold staff meeting to discuss the cause of problems. Let this meeting be regular, and then make yourself available to listen to the employees' problems. And thank you very much for your contribution. I appreciate you. And we're going to take the next course shortly after now. Let's give ourselves a power clap. Thank you. I like to do